And welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Football Friday podcast. Matt Catrillo and Ian Hunter here with you this week. Alex Kazora and Tyler DeGiacomo both off. We hope to have them both back next week, and we're going to push back the mock draft that we're going to do. I promise it's coming, just we're trying to get some things together. And we also have some big news, too, regarding the show. And Ian, I'll have you chime in on some of this, too, as we are kind of revamping the show a little bit. We are officially going to be moving the show from SoundCloud over to YouTube. We're going to have some new graphics involved. We're going to have a couple other things going on with the show. We're hoping to start bringing on some guests here and there. So a couple changes coming to the show, but the biggest thing is you can now view the shows on YouTube. Just these are on our part, and we're going to have some cool graphics and other stuff like that. So we're looking forward to and excited to seeing some of the new changes we'll have to the show coming up here.
Yeah, we're going to really rebrand it a little bit. We're going to, it's called the Football Friday podcast. It's actually going to be released moving forward on Friday.
Yes.
So we'll do that. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll make some fun changes here. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, so definitely.
We're going legit.
Yes, exactly, and be sure to stay tuned for that. And some personal news for me. I know for those that haven't seen on Twitter yet, I am now a contributing writer for the Washington Redskins portion of Pro Football Spot. I want to give a shout out to Russell Baxter and the PFS crew for bringing me in, and really excited to be working with the team and have had a couple stories out already, so be sure to check us out at Pro Football Spot. You can follow the Redskins Spot on Twitter at @spot_Redskins, so very excited about that. So in addition to our Eagles and Steelers coverage, which will still be the primary focus, we'll start mixing in some Redskins stuff around here for those who might be following this based
pretty
on
much
what
we're just all going to we're just going to talk NFL.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole show is based on the NFL, just a little bit more PA football driven, but we'll extend it a little bit now to the Redskins since I now have my new duties with Pro Football.
Well, the nice thing with the Redskins is they will always give us something to talk about.
That is very true, and I said this to some of my family members the other day when they expressed their congrats about the job. Is, I came in at a good time because there's a lot to talk about, obviously, with the Washington Redskins and things that are going on both on and off the field. So it's good. I'm excited about it. So a lot of good changes coming to the show, and be sure to stay tuned for all that. So now let's actually move on to what's been going on around the league.
Yeah, let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. And first, we'll start with the Eagles as they trade for Jimmy Jernigan, defensive tackle from the Ravens, for basically swapping third-round picks. The Eagles will move down to the 99th overall pick. Baltimore moves up to the 74th pick. And this is a deal I really like, I think, for the Eagles. This is a guy in Jernigan who's only 24 years old, and he's one of only 7 NFL defensive tackles with 4 sacks in each of the last 3 seasons. The others being Fletcher Cox, Jarrell Casey, Mike Daniels, Aaron Donald, Drill McCoy, and Ndamukong Suh. So that's pretty good company that this kid is in. He's had some off-the-field issues, and he's had some locker room issues with the coaches. Wasn't happy with his role, so I think a change of scenery could be good as well. He has 13 sacks overall in his first 3 seasons in the league, and I think he's got some pass rushing ability too. And so the Eagles basically get Benny Logan's replacement, as he will now compete with Bo Allen for some playing time at that defensive tackle spot for the Eagles. And he did a lot of one-gapping in the 3-4 system too, so I think this is going to be a good fit for the Eagles, a better fit now that he's with the Eagles in a 4-3 scheme with Jim Schwartz. What do you think about it, Ian?
I like it. I mean, they didn't really give anything up for him. They essentially got it for nothing. I mean, Baltimore now has a 74th overall. Philly has 99. So they just moved down a couple of spots, and you can't beat it. Timmy Jernigan, he is in the last year of his deal, but he's a good player. So anytime you bring in good players, it's never a bad thing.
Yeah, and clearly, as we've seen from the beginning of free agency, Ian, the Eagles are bringing in a lot of guys to prove themselves, and we'll see if that goes in the positive direction, and if they can bring some of these guys back. We've seen it with Torrey Smith, we've seen it with Alshon Jeffrey, and now we're seeing it with Jernigan here. Plus Patrick Robinson they brought in from the Colts a couple weeks ago. He's on a 1-year deal, so, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty still with the Eagles going forward, but as far as the short term goes, they have some guys that need to prove themselves, and maybe that can last this team for a while the Eagles continue to build this thing through the draft. So I kind of like overall what the Eagles have done so far as bringing these guys in. Like I said, the only move I didn't really like was the Alshon Jeffrey move because of the money. But I think overall I like the direction we're going in right now. Yeah,
It's only 1-year deal.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that's exactly right. So overall, I still like what the Eagles have done so far. and filling in some of those pieces. And now I'm really excited with the draft being 3 weeks away, what they do now with Joe Douglas at the helm coming up as well. So I do like that pick for the Eagles there. So now we go to the Steelers, Ian, where they've been making a couple of visits with quarterbacks, and Patrick Mahomes from Texas A&M, and Josh Dobson from Tennessee coming in for pre-draft visits. And obviously it's a little bit strange to talk about that because obviously Big Ben being the quarterback, but based on what we heard from him during the offseason and then the Steelers' reaction to it, the Steelers have said multiple times that they're going to start thinking about what their plans are going to be post-Ben Roethlisberger's career. So this is obviously something that Steeler fans should be expecting, I would think.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, of the two guys they brought in, I think they're going to bring in Brad Kaya too. I like Brad Kaya the most out of the three. I think Patrick Mahomes he's a guy who has the talent, but you watch his tape and you're kind of dumbfounded with where his feet are and like where most of his throws end up. I know he threw for a bunch of yards, but I feel like you watch him and it's like every 4 out of 5 passes are nowhere near where they should be. His feet are all over the place. It's just not I don't know. I just don't think he's a guy you're going to have to get in round 1, and that's not a guy I would take in round 1. But Josh Dobbs and Brad Kaya, I'd be okay with. I mean, if you're Pittsburgh, none of these quarterbacks are guys that are going to that should start right away. And if you want to try and find the heir apparent, maybe in round 3 with a guy like Brad Kaya, I'd be okay with that.
And it's been reported before that the Steelers are probably going to look at a quarterback within those rounds 3 to 5, which of course wouldn't be surprising because you're probably going to have Ben, you would think probably another 2 to 3 years, at least I think, depending on his health and things like that. So that is definitely no surprise, but it just seems like the media has just been playing it up, saying, oh boy, the Steelers are starting to look at quarterbacks now. What does this mean for Ben Roethlisberger? Just based on the comments he made at the end of the season after they lost in the AFC Championship game. But like I said before, this really should be no surprise. I think it's because some of these guys, like a Dobson, like a Mahomes, are probably the next in line after the big three, so to speak, of Kaiser, Trubisky, and Deshaun Watson. But either way, the Steelers this is not going to be a first priority for the Steelers, and I think that might be a little bit a misconception of what their plans are now.
I don't know, though. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger's in his late 30s, and Chuck Noll is always famous for saying that once you've thought about retired, you've already retired. And so you have to wonder, maybe this will be Ben Roethlisberger's last year. And if you're Pittsburgh, you don't want to risk going into 2018 with Landry Jones as your only quarterback on the roster.
That is true, yeah.
So that's something you really need to think about. You want to be proactive with it. And, I'm not saying you're going to go get the next Dak Prescott, but the Cowboys did this. And I know we're going to talk about Tony Romo here next. But think about that. Think about what position the Dallas Cowboys would be in right now if they had drafted Dak Prescott as a guy to develop and maybe be the starter one day. He was thrown in there and ended up being a really good player and is the next guy in Dallas. And if you're Pittsburgh, you're hoping to find someone of that ilk who if Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt, he can come in and provide good play and then eventually be the starter. So it's okay to think ahead like that. These quarterbacks aren't great, but in round 3, you have that comp pick in round 3. I'd say go for it. If Brad Kaya is there in the 3rd round, I think you got to go for it.
It's interesting that you point that out, Ian, because we're going to get to Romo in just 1 second. If Dak Prescott doesn't flash the way he did, then Romo's still the quarterback most likely of this team, and he's not retired or just stepping away from football.
Well, and think about this too. If Romo got hurt again, so Romo got hurt the year before. Dallas had a couple other guys there. They essentially had the same team, minus Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott. And Tony Romo gets hurt, and they bring in Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott, and Romo gets hurt again. Except this time they have one of the best records in the NFL. And I don't think that's a coincidence. They were able to find guys who could play, and they had a good team built around them, and they could go and roll. And I think Pittsburgh is in a position where if you address some of the key issues they have defensively, and they have a very good defensive line, they have a very good set of linebackers, still getting the secondary build up. They have a very good running back, good wide receiver, and a very good offensive line. If you're going to bring in a young quarterback, now would be the time, because now you're not going to be asking him to make all these plays and try to help you. You can bring him along.
Right, and I think you can still use that plan and bring a quarterback in those rounds 3 through 5, because this is still a very, very talented team, Ian, that was a game away from the Super Bowl, and I think they need to use those the first 1, 2, maybe 3 rounds to still continue to build that way, especially as we saw defensively as well.
And I know we're going to get to this more and more, but you think about what the Ravens and Bengals are going to do. That might have a lot of, in the Browns, it's going to have a lot of probably influence of what Pittsburgh ultimately decides to do in the first round. So if Baltimore and Cincinnati maybe go wide receiver in the first round, well, that convince Pittsburgh, like, maybe we need to go cornerback here in round 1, and then we'll address pass rusher in round 2, or linebacker in round 2, or whatever they decide to end up doing. So it's when you're drafting 30, there's a lot of different scenarios. I mean, you're sitting back and waiting. A lot of things are going to happen that are eventually going to influence your decision. But I do think, back to the whole quarterback thing, bring in a quarterback now, and if it's for a year, he develops, at least enough where you're comfortable putting him in there ahead of Landry Jones, then that's what you got to do. Now, if you bring a guy in and Landry Jones is clearly better, then moving forward that you guessed wrong and that you know what to look for next time. So, and Mike Tomlin's even talked about this is a dry run. So if you make a mistake, you're knowing about it now when you're not necessarily trying to spend a first-round pick on a quarterback.
And this is definitely, I think, the time and the draft class, Ian, for the Steelers to have a dry run, quote-unquote, as Tomlin has characterized it, because this quarterback class isn't as strong as some others. So if you miss on a particular quarterback that you bring in this year, well, you probably will have Roethlisberger maybe for a year or two later, and now you know that that isn't the guy you
said it the way that you did when it's not a strong group of quarterbacks. Because, listen, Deshaun Watson, Mitch Trubisky, Sean Kaiser, they're all really talented guys. They really are. They're all really good players. They could end up being really good players in the NFL. It's just they're not polished. There's big question marks with each of them. Now, every one of those guys could come in and address the issues that they've had and be very good players in this league. That's kind of the fun thing about this draft class. And I had someone tell me today, this draft class isn't really good because the quarterbacks aren't really good. No, that's not true. The quarterbacks they're good. They're good players. They're just question marks. They're not Andrew Luck.
Exactly, and I've had the chance to watch Deshaun Watson, who I did a story on for Pro Football Spot, and I just got a chance to finish up Mitch Trubisky. And the common theme I'm seeing so far, and I'm going to look for this when I look at Deshaun Kaiser next, is there's a lot of things to work with these quarterbacks, but they're still not perfect. They still need a lot of good coaching to become what they maybe have the potential to be.
Yeah, and everyone, all these quarterbacks are playing in systems in college where they're, quick one read and rip it. Quick read, rip. And there's not a whole lot of diagnosing defenses or things such as that. So it's going to take a lot of these quarterbacks more time now than maybe it did a couple of years ago. So every team has to go about this and recognize that we're not looking at quarterbacks the same way we were. We have to have good players around them. We can't just ask quarterbacks to come in and save a franchise. We got to build around them. We have to have a good offensive line. We have to have a good defense. We have to have some runners and some receivers in place before we draft these guys, or they're not going to succeed.
Right, and you have to have a good defense too.
Look at the difference. I understand they're two different players, but look at what the Eagles had when they had Jared Goff, when they brought in Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
And look what the Rams had whenever they brought in Jared Goff. Carson Wentz comes into a situation where there's some good players on both sides of the ball in Philadelphia. They can win. They can play some games. The growing pains are going to be there, but you have a team in place. You have some staples there of that team. You have the Rams, on the other hand, which are a complete dumpster fire, and you're asking a number 1 overall pick to come in and be your guy. And what's more conducive to success? The team built around the quarterback rather than hoping the quarterback can bring you salvation.
And now, of course, Jared Goff is dealing with a new coaching regime right away in just his second season after a disastrous rookie year. So
and there's still no talent. They have no first-round pick.
Yes, exactly. So Yeah, it's as you said, Ian. That's why we love the draft. You never know what's going to come out of it. Mentioning Dak Prescott last year, so we shall see what happens with just about 3 weeks away until the draft in Philly. And we go to another quarterback, Ian, who is now going to be in the broadcast booth, replacing another quarterback on the CBS docket with Jim Nantz in the #1 broadcast team, as Tony Romo has left the NFL, not retired, but he has left the NFL after getting released from the Cowboys yesterday, as he goes to the #1 broadcast team on CBS with Jim Nantz and Tracy Wolfson. Phil Simms' future is still to be determined. They're still working on that with CBS. I ultimately think he'll probably go to the studio, but there's some speculation out there that he'll still do games and want to do games, so we'll see where that leads first. But I get it's the nature of the business now, and basically if you play in the NFL and you're somewhat friendly in the media, there's a good chance you can transition right into broadcasting. But when it gets this far as the #1 broadcast team on one of the top networks that covers the NFL games, and I wasn't a big Phil Simms fan, but this to me is an absolute disgrace. That you just have a guy that has no broadcast experience, and this is coming from basically a bitter media person myself, and he just jumps right in there and has a #1 guy when he's got no experience. Now I get they probably should have done a couple auditions, but it's just the moral of this to me just really bothers me. I don't know about how you feel about this, Ian.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you with this. But I get why they did what they did. I mean, they were in a bidding war with the other network, with NBC and with Fox, to try to get Tony Romo to join their broadcast group. And I'm sure the paycheck and the #1 spot was the big pitch. That's what CBS felt they needed to do to get a guy like Tony Romo. But I'm with you. It drives me insane that guys get opportunities like this that have never had any experience broadcasting. But that's you and me just complaining about something that we're in, and it's something that has always happened. And I'm interested to see what happens. I mean, I'm sure Phil Simms is not happy. He's been doing that for as long as I can remember, and
it's been there for 20 plus years.
Late 90s, right? Yeah. So it's kind of unfortunate the way that it went down, and who knows? Tony Romo might still be playing next year. I mean, I know he said he retired, but someone gets hurt in training camp, they might call, they might not. But I am not exactly saying that we've seen the last of Tony Romo in the NFL.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I think the minute, whether it's Dallas especially or any other team that's quarterback needy, that has an injury, whatever, yeah, I totally agree that he could be getting a call. And
but here's the thing, Tony Romo hasn't played in over 2 years.
Oh, yeah, that's another big point.
Badly the last 2 years, and I think whenever no teams were kind of going for him, I mean, I know Houston was interested at their price, but when no team was busting down the door to get him, I think he probably got the understanding, like, it's like what happened with Hines Ward a couple years ago. The Steelers weren't willing to resign him. He said, I'll just go test free agency, and then no one came knocking. He was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to hang it up. And I think that's maybe what happened here.
Yeah, right. But
it's the nature of the beast. It happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't get to walk away by your own feelings. Sometimes you're told to walk away. Unfortunately, if you're Tony Romo right now, he's being told, listen, there's nothing wrong with your arm or your talent. You can't stay healthy. If you can't stay healthy, you're no good to us.
And yeah, it's exactly right. Bill Polian always says, your #1 ability is durability, and that certainly has not been the case for Romo this last couple of seasons. And I think too, and like I said, I can't blame him for taking this at all, because when you look at just the injuries alone, he's got a young family too, and so he wants to be able to project his long-term health and get better, so he's there for his family as well, and you have to keep that in mind. But it certainly was a no-brainer for him to take that kind of gig right away. But just you and I said, Ian, it's just the way it is.
You can't be mad at Tony Romo for taking the job.
Absolutely not.
You're annoyed that CBS is like, yeah, you're going to be our #1 guy, but yeah, if you're Tony Romo, they offer for you a contract plus this great gig. I mean, you'd be silly at this point to say no.
So we'll keep an eye on though and see if he does end up back on the gridiron at some point, barring any injuries that could happen. So next we go. Well, actually, before we move on, Ian, one thing I do want to ask you, though, is, we mentioned the Texans as one of the top teams that were interested in Romo. It looks like now Tom Savage is going to be their starting quarterback next year. If I'm a Texans fan, I'm not feeling great about that. But again, we just spent some time talking about a little bit about this quarterback class.
Can it seriously be worse?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying I don't feel good about Tom Savage either.
No. I think there's a pretty decent shot that Mitchell Trubisky, whatever he wants to go by, is going to be there when they pick.
They're at 26, I believe, so he would have to take a stumble.
I have a feeling he'll be there. Maybe Watson or Kaiser are there. I think they go quarterback round 1 as long as one of those top 3 guys are there. I don't see them taking a Pat Mahomes because
I think so
too. Raw and it's going to take years of coaching, and that's something the Texans don't have. They can win right now. That team is so good at everywhere but the quarterback. They just need a guy to come in and maybe pass the ball 15, 20 times a game. That's it. 15, 20 times a game, run the ball with Lamar Miller, and let your defense work. And I think they can be really, really good. If they can add a couple of pieces, like to their offensive line, maybe round 2, and then with a quarterback in round 1, I think they're going to be in really good shape. But they just need a guy to come in 15, 20 times a game, don't turn the ball over, and the Texans can win in this division.
Yeah, I mean, the division stinks, but I really do think Tennessee is the team to beat in that division next year. But
I don't think the Texans stink. I think they're a really good team, and you got to hope that the Colts can eventually make it out of this dark cloud their former GM put them in.
I got a lot of doubts about that right now, just because there's literally nothing but Andrew Luck in that case. When you look at
Andrew Luck has got to be sitting there singing, "I just need a little help from my friends."
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you do give him that help, as we've seen in the past, he can get you as a Super Bowl contender right away.
Be an MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious to see what happens with the Texans, because again, they're in that spot too, similarly to the Steelers, where they're in the bottom of the draft. They have to play a lot of wait and see mode. And I don't know if Trubisky and/or Watson are going to be there at 26. I think Kaiser, they're probably the best chance at Kaiser. So, but who really knows? Because the 49ers like Kaiser a lot too. So who knows? We'll see. But I would agree, if it's not one of the big 3, Bill O'Brien's not going to take a quarterback, at least in round 1. Maybe he takes one
where the Texans consider trading up, because they are very good in a lot of areas where they can feel like we can win now if we just get a guy who can come in.
I wouldn't be surprised, especially if they trade up to any of the teen picks and towards the middle of the round, where I think Watson and Trubisky at least are going to go.
That's something that in 3 weeks from now, I think we can realistically see. I mean, it's so hard to project trades because you just have no idea.
Yeah.
But that'd be a realistic thing for them. I really do. You come up in 15, 16, and then you're definitely nearly guaranteed, I think, to get at least Trubisky.
Right, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that as the draft gets closer. So next, Ian, we haven't had a chance to talk about the next move.
The Vegas Raiders.
Exactly. The Las Vegas Raiders. That kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit when you say it like that. As they were officially approved by a 31-1 vote. The Dolphins had the lone nay vote in the owners' meetings in Phoenix 2 weeks ago. But this is going to be a very strange ending and ultimately a strange divorce between the Raiders and their fan base.
I heard this described.
Yes.
It's like breaking up with your girlfriend, but still living in her house.
Yes, exactly.
Like having a relationship with her, but saying, "Listen, in 2 years, I'm going to leave you for this hot new thing who's whatever, this brand new model. She's going to be gorgeous." But I'm staying here for 2 years, but I'm going to go over there at the end of this.
Or maybe just one season. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. It's unfortunate because you want teams to stay. And I legitimately believe the NFL wanted the Raiders to stay in Oakland.
See, I actually don't buy that for a second, just because, just look at the numbers here. This is a $1.3 billion project for this new stadium that's going to open up in 2020 in Vegas, okay? They're getting $750 million of the hotel tax money from Vegas, which they had approved. Then, before this happened, Mark Davis already had a $650 million loan from Bank of America for a possible stadium project. Plus, he got another $100 million from the league. So that is $750 alone right there. So you're telling me the league itself is an issue because you're a billion-dollar corporation, and from Mark Davis's standpoint, as the owner of one of the most iconic franchises, not only in football but in all of sports, you can't come up with more money, just a little bit more, I'm sure, a couple $100 million, to finish a stadium project and stay in Oakland. I find that very hard to believe, which is why I don't buy that argument.
Oakland's not a great town.
I understand that, but I'm saying, the point is, if they truly wanted to be loyal to Oakland and that fan base, they had the money. I don't buy that for a second. They had the money to have them stay in Oakland.
I don't think Raiders have any loyalty to Oakland. I mean, so think about whenever Oakland came back from LA back in the 90s. Oakland had said that they were going to build them a new stadium. You know, they renewed for them and the A's, build them a new stadium, the whole 9 yards. That was the main reason that Al Davis came back to Oakland. It is 2017. That stadium is still there, and it is the worst in the NFL. The worst in the NFL. The NFL and the committee tries to go to the Oakland A's. Like, hey, do you want to share the stadium again? They can't get the Oakland A's to play ball. And so it's hard to... I mean, you feel bad for the fans of Oakland, but Oakland, I don't think, is in any position to build a new stadium. The city, they're just not. And if you're the Raiders, you are one of the most iconic franchises in the NFL who plays in a shared stadium, which hardly anyone does anymore.
They're the only team that does it now.
It's the worst stadium in the NFL. So how do you blame the Oakland Raiders for going and saying, okay, listen, if you guys aren't going to do it, we love you, but we're going to have to go somewhere else? You know, and that's just... that happens, and it stinks. And I hate the fact that these, the teams are moving. But we just saw, the Rams have moved here in the last couple of years.
3 moves in the last 14 months.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they're all to major markets. I mean, going to LA, I mean, everyone, the NFL's always wanted a team in LA, and they go back and forth with them. And I'm sure they wish it was any other team but the LA Rams right now, or even the new Los Angeles Chargers, because they're not great right now. I'm sure they wish it was some other.
They don't even have an actual NFL stadium right now. They're playing at a soccer stadium for 2 years, and they can only get 30,000 fans. I mean, it's a disgrace in itself.
Yeah, that one I really don't like. I feel really bad for that, but it's all about tax dollars. I mean, a lot of these owners can pay for stadiums, no problem. And there's sometimes where it's greed, and they want the taxpayers and the fans to pay for it. And other times, the fans are willing. Other times, the fans are not willing. I think a lot of owners could learn from Jerry Jones, and I can't believe I'm saying this.
Yes, I want to go throw up now,
but Jerry Jones paid for his freaking stadium. Guess what? Jerry Jones owns it. Everything that rolls through that stadium, Jerry Jones gets a piece out of it. So you're telling me that he hasn't already paid for that stadium based on that? They've had WrestleMania, they've had the Final Four, they've had these big events.
Now maybe the draft next year at their new practice facility.
Yeah, so they've had plenty of, Oakland or Dallas is fine. They're doing just fine with that decision. And, I think a lot of owners could realistically build new stadiums that they want themselves.
See, and that's my point, because like Jerry Jones he's the owner of one of the most iconic franchises in all of sports. So, yes, he had that money to build that kind of magnificent stadium, which is obviously the best in the league. So, Mark Davis, in that same situation, even though Oakland's maybe not the same type of city as Dallas is, still had that ability to me, and I'm not buying that he didn't have that type of money to keep and build a stadium in Oakland. Or somewhere outside of the Bay Area where the 49ers, they're not in San Francisco anymore. They're in Santa Clara. They could have gone in San Jose, any of those spots outside of the Bay Area, and built a new stadium to stay with that franchise and to keep that franchise near that city. I think we
look at it as taxes, too, in California. And that might have been a part of it, too.
It clearly was. And you mentioned the greed thing, Ian. This deal reeks of greed because of that exact thing of tax money. They're getting $750 million alone from Las Vegas, which, of course, they can do because they are known, obviously, they're Sin City. They're the entertainment capital of the world. They can afford to do that. Oakland can't afford to do that, and they're not going to, because they can't afford to, they're not going to ask their taxpayers to do that, as they shouldn't. Because, as you just pointed out with Jerry Jones, these owners and the NFL, even themselves, have the ability to fund their own stadium. They just don't want to do it. That's why this deal stinks. At least for Oakland fans. It doesn't stink for the NFL, obviously.
I agree.
So it just really, I'm just curious what this is going to be like for the Raiders going into just this season alone, because this is obviously a mess in itself, but you have a Raiders team that's on the verge of possibly becoming a Super Bowl contender. So it's just like the biggest mix of emotions I think you're ever going to see if Oakland does in fact become one of the best teams in the league next year.
I think they already are a Super Bowl contender, and the fact it's really unfortunate that it's not going to be in Oakland. I mean, I feel bad, but I don't feel bad.
Why? Because the Steelers haven't played that well in Oakland the last couple of years? I can see. Well, except for the Nick Foles game, the Eagles didn't play that well out in Oakland either, so I guess I can give you that.
I mean, that's why I'm okay with this, is because whenever Pittsburgh plays in Oakland, stupid and weird things happen, and I'm tired of that happening. Go to Vegas, please. No, hold on, I'll help you pack.
I might be there with you, maybe, but I don't know. I really hurt for Oakland fans, and that really kind of sunk me a little bit when I saw that. But that's going to be seeing that dynamic is going to be very, very interesting come next season. So next game we go to our 2-a-days, but since we're kind of losing time a little bit, this reminds me of our days back on the radio. We're going to do 4 again today. So we're going to start with the Vikings, even though the Eagles are at the 14th pick. Colts, Ravens, Redskins, and then we'll continue with them next week. So let's start with the Vikings, Ian. And of course, we know why they're in this state of them not having a first-round pick is because Sam Bradford became their quarterback when Teddy Bridgewater went down. The Eagles make the trade. We all know the story by now. So there's that dynamic. There's no more Adrian Peterson either. Cordell Patterson's gone. There's a lot of holes here for the Vikings offensively that they need to address.
Okay, so yeah, the Vikings have probably the worst offensive line in football. I think we can all agree on that. I don't think there's any discussion. They had so many injuries last year. They need to address their offensive line, something terrible. I think they have a shot to do that in the second round, but there's just, I know they've signed a couple guys that maybe can be stopgaps, but we'll just have to see. They are just. You want to talk about a team that's so close to Super Bowl contention, but you can't win a Super Bowl without an offensive line.
Yeah, just the fact from where the Vikings were at this time last season and now where they are right now, it's really heartbreaking for that fan base because here you go into last season thinking that you could be a Super Bowl contender. You start even 5-0 with your new quarterback and Sam Bradford, and then everything else just goes completely down the toilet. And now they're looking at a lot to rebuild.
Yeah, it was just. I've never seen a more snake-bitten season from a team that had Super Bowl aspirations. Every week it was someone new, and there was nothing they could do.
Yeah, no question about that. And defensively, they had their injuries as well. Any thoughts there as far as where are some areas that they need to address?
You might be able to go defensive line, but they don't have a first-round pick, so I think you got to go offensive line. You got to do it. There's going to be some guys there probably in the mid part of the second round where they're picking that they can grab and be happy with. I'm not sure about tackle. It's going to depend, but I think guard is an issue that they can look at. There should be some guard prospects there that are going to be really good players. So that would be where I look to first, and then you have to hope to get maybe a little bit lucky going forward through the rest of the draft.
Yeah, and luckily for them, and going back to the defensive line, there's a lot of depth there. We talked about cornerback and safety. Those are some areas that I'm sure they're going to need help with as well. But the number one storyline to me, besides the health of the O-line and going into next year, is obviously when is Teddy Bridgewater going to be ready, and what's Sam Bradford's future after this year?
If he's ever going to be ready.
Well, yeah, and that is the point. That is a good point too. But he's supposedly going to be ready for, if I remember correctly, for the beginning of the season, or maybe he might miss a week or two. But even
I
now,
heard
what's
it
Sam
might be the
Bradford's
whole
future?
season still. They don't know.
Wow. Yeah, it's very interesting because now if he is out for another season, do you bring Sam Bradford back? Do you draft somebody? I guess that's going to depend on Sam Bradford's play too, and can he stay healthy as well? But just
I mean,
that's
Sam Bradford had his best year last year with a terrible offensive line. So if you put Simeons of an offensive line there, I think you'll be really happy with where you're at. You're going to get a lot of those defensive guys back. I know Sharif Floyd's a bit of a question mark. I guess his injury was worse than I thought. But I think wide receiver is also an area that they could go maybe in like the mid rounds. I know they drafted a couple guys last year, but Laquan Treadwell did nothing his rookie year. So
yeah, he was really disappointing.
He literally, I think, had maybe a handful of catches, like single digits. So he needs to have a big year this year for them to be relevant.
Right, absolutely. So we won't hear from the Vikings until round 2, but we did them anyway since they did have the 14th pick originally, but the Eagles have that pick for the draft coming up. Next are the Colts at 15, Ian. We started talking about them a little bit. They got to start building around Andrew Luck again.
They got to do something. I mean, they could take best player available, and it'll still fill a need. They need pass rushers. They need linebackers. They need defensive backs. They need offensive line. They need running backs. They need wide receivers. They need everything. Maybe not wide receivers. They have a couple of guys there. But they traded away a tight end. They need tight end too. They literally need everything. They have quarterback that's pretty good, but they could go running back. You think Christian McCaffrey might be a place you see that might be a landing spot for him. Pass rusher. They need people to get after the quarterback. They need anyone to get after the quarterback. They just need players. And if you're the Colts, I don't think there's one specific area you can focus on more than any other, because the offensive line is still not good. I know they addressed it a little bit last year, but they need so many different things because their GMA has been so bad since they picked Andrew Luck. Pretty much every pick after Andrew Luck was crap.
Yeah, no question about that. And with their other weapon that they have right now, T.Y. Hilton, he also can't stay healthy too. And I also did not understand the Dwayne Allen trade at all. So yeah, that they need to build weapons and they need them fast. And you mentioned Christian McCaffrey. I really think he would be a solid fit there with the Colts and what they like to do offensively.
I do too. I think you could also see like pass rushers can be the other big thing. I think of the 3 areas I can see them going in round 1: running back, offensive line, and then pass rusher. And those are the 3 areas I can see them going pretty early. Derek Barnett might be a player to look for there as well. Taco Charlton might be a player to look there. Charles Harris, any of the pass rushers who are first-round guys, you might see there. If by any chance, and it might happen, if Jonathan Allen might fall, more and more people are talking about the worry about that shoulder. He could fall.
That's interesting.
If you're the Colts, a guy like that falls, you're going to be a really happy guy.
Yeah, that's another interesting name to keep an eye on too. And I really do like Derek Barnett too. I think he actually could be legitimately a big possibility for the Colts at 15 if a team like the Eagles in front of him don't take him and they go somewhere else too. Because I think he'd be a good fit with the Eagles as well. So, but yeah, if he does fall, I think you take him. No question.
We didn't talk about the Eagles signing Chris Long. I thought that was a great hire.
Yes, absolutely. We did miss that. Yeah. Again, another 1-year deal. Had a nice end with the Patriots last year. Seems to be a good fit.
It's Baldwin. It's Connor Baldwin, a little younger.
Yeah, definitely, and a better scheme fit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was okay with that. I mean, again, we'll see what happens there. He's going to be a rotational guy at best. So yeah, I didn't totally mind that move. So next we go to 16th overall, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Ian, I know you talked about them maybe going receiver early on. Where else do you see them going?
I think pass rusher is also an area that they can look to as well, with Suggs being really, really up there in age, and I think Dumerville's gone. So they need a guy to come in. They need some pass rush help. They need some defensive help. I think quarterback also is an area you could see them address as well. But no, a pass rusher I think is going to be the top thing that they look for, because I know they drafted Correa out of Boise State last year, and he got hurt, so we'll see what he ends up becoming. But I think pass rusher or wide receiver. If John Ross is there, with a guy like Flacco's got an arm cannon the way that he does,
yeah,
then I can see John Ross being good there.
But again, with John Ross, as we've talked about ad nauseum already, are the injury concerns. The shoulder. We all know the speed he can bring with the 4.22 he ran at the
But
pro day.
when he's healthy, I don't think. I mean, the guy's really, really good.
Yeah, no, I'm totally there with you. I really just worry about that shoulder and just longevity.
It was kind of funny. I saw a draft board that had him rated as a third-round pick. I was like, well, you can rate him as a third-round pick all you want, but the dude's going to go in the first round.
Oh, it's just like the quarterbacks too.
Yeah.
Nobody has first-round grades on any of these quarterbacks, and they're all going to go probably mid to late first round. Who knows? Maybe even in the top 10.
The third best wide receiver in this class, though,
Yeah.
so he's going to go in the first.
Yeah, I think I would probably tend to agree. I'd be shocked if less than 3 receivers go or get drafted in the first round overall. Just talking in that standpoint.
I think the top 3 do. I don't know if any more get drafted. I think the rest are good second round, like Zay Jones and good one. I think are.
I still think Zay
guys.
Jones has a very good chance to go in the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if he falls to early second.
Listen, nothing with the NFL draft surprises me, so I wouldn't be shocked.
And then finally, Ian, at number 17, we'll end there for today, are the Washington Redskins. And I know I talked about them a little bit starting off in the podcast, and I did a story yesterday on ProFootballSpot.com on the Redskins side of things. It is time, I think, for the Redskins to move on from Kirk Cousins, even though he is signed for 2017, and go and draft a quarterback. And they're in that spot where we talked about guys like Deshaun Watson, who I did my story on the other day. I think he could be someone the Redskins could look at. Or now I think Mitch Trubisky is someone the Redskins could look at, and I think I might be doing a story on him coming up next week for the website. I think any one of those two guys are ones they can build around a little bit and groom, and take this year to groom them under Kirk Cousins, and then bring him into the fold for year 2. Because I know Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder said before they want Kirk Cousins here long term and this and that, but to me, and Kirk Cousins obviously has expressed his trade wants and trade requests and things like that. So bottom line is, if both sides wanted to get a deal done, a deal would have been done by now. It's not done. They keep franchise tagging him. I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, I think they might even trade him before the draft this year. I know San Francisco really wants Kirk Cousins, and I know the reports have been that they're willing to trade the number 2 overall pick. If you're going to bring in a guy, if you're going to draft Kirk Cousins' replacement this year, then I would make sure Kirk Cousins isn't there. Because all you're going to do is cause more drama in D.C. And I know for whatever reason they seem to like that, but it's not a good way to win football games. So get rid of the distraction. Just take the heat when it's there, but then move on from it. Bring in a new guy and just go. If Kirk Cousins doesn't want to be there and you don't want him, then don't pay him the franchise tag money. Send him somewhere else and bring in a new guy and then go from there. But the shame of it is that the Redskins are a really good football team. They have some players there that they can do some things, and they're just going to flush it down the toilet again. They just can't get out of their own way. A team that you want to look at RG3. They were a team that was really, really good. They bring in RG3. He gets hurt and is never really the same, and then they kind of, screw the pooch with that whole situation. Then you have Kirk Cousins coming in and plays really well. He's not in the franchise. He's not like one of the top 10 quarterbacks, but he's a good player. And it's hard to find good players at the quarterback position. They find a way to screw that up. And it's amazing to see just the ineptitude and how the Redskins operate, because Alex talks about this all the time, the classic 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Except I think the Redskins take it a step further. They take a step forward and then next year we'll take 4 steps back. It'll be fine, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, it really is amazing. This is going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, would I be surprised if they make this, if this is a draft night trade? Obviously, that wouldn't surprise me one bit.
If something with Kirk Cousins is going to happen, it'll happen beforehand. I know there has been a whole lot of word, but I wouldn't be surprised if something happened here. It's just, I would be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked, I guess is the way to say it, if Kirk Cousins is a 49er by April 27th.
Right, and I understand the point, too, of, locker room issues and working in the quarterback room together. If you bring in the next maybe franchise guy, and you're Kirk Cousins, you're still there, you really don't want to be there. But to me, if he still has to play for that big contract he thinks he deserves, and I think he's going to be more focused on that, and I don't think he's going to really get in the way of.
But it just causes more problems because you know you're not going to be there. So it's hard to build on anything. If you're a team, you don't know where you're going. You know that your best player is leaving, and that you have this new guy coming up, and there's so much uncertainty, and it's hard to bring in free agents that way. It's just a mess, and just the smartest thing the Redskins can do is just to get rid of him. Just get rid of him. You know, if you don't want him there, and he doesn't want to be, then just get rid of him. Just don't let him sign somewhere else. Rescind the franchise tag, trade him, whatever you got to do. Just get rid of him and let the distraction be over.
I totally get that, and obviously there's other needs too that the Redskins can go with. They're still looking at pass rusher.
Well, I guess they can't rescind the tender offer because he signed it.
Yeah, he already signed it, so it would have to be a trade. Right, you're right. I did, yeah. But yeah, as far as other needs go, defensive end is something that I'm sure they're going to look at. They're still trying to beef that up. They just brought in Zach Brown, who had a productive season with the Bills last year. They need a lot of work at inside linebacker. So I think you're going to see them look at there. Safety's a really, really big need too. So I think you could see them possibly look at that as a deep safety class as well. And also when you look at receiver, I don't think it's a dire need right now, just because I think they have some pieces, obviously, with Jordan Reed at tight end, Josh Doctson on the outside, though we got hurt last year. So I think that, and Jamison Crowder as well has a lot. You have a lot of speed on the outside there with both those guys.
Yeah.
And Doctson, I think if I'm a Redskin fan, I'm curious to see where he is next year. But I think it wouldn't surprise me if they brought somebody in like second, third, maybe fourth round, because the receiver class is so deep too.
No, I would agree with you. I think that's all areas that they can go, but none of that means a hill of beans without this quarterback situation being resolved.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you're the Redskins. That's foremost what you do. And if you draft a new guy, then cool, but you got to jettison. Get the number 2 overall pick. Just get it. There, take Solomon Thomas. You got your defensive end.
That is one option, yeah.
And then the second first-round pick, take a quarterback. Boom. Done. Yeah,
I think that would be a good plan for the Redskins too. And not only that too, but we also have 2 new coordinators coming into the mix this year, with a head coach in Jay Gruden that just signed a 2-year extension. So you have that to look out for too.
Yeah, those extensions don't mean anything.
That's true, yes.
You and I both know that. If they have a bad year this year, he might be gone.
I was, in fact, a little surprised that they did do that, considering what's going on with Kirk Cousins right now. But
they signed Jeff Fisher to an extension, then fired him like 3 days later.
That is true, yes.
That doesn't mean anything.
And then finally, Ian, before we wrap it up for this week, the Richard Sherman situation is continuing to brew, as Seahawks management was on ESPN Radio in Seattle, basically coming out and being very transparent and saying, yeah, Richard Sherman is on the trading block. And I find this a little bizarre, maybe a little surprising, the fact that they've coming out and are being honest about it. Though if I'm a fan, I do appreciate the honesty, because that's something you rarely see, especially with front office members doing media interviews.
I'm just trying to see this from a football perspective, though.
And that's the question mark.
When you trade an all-pro player, you never get better at the position. You can try to replace a guy, but you never get better. And Richard Sherman is so perfect for that scheme and how they want to play. Why would you trade him? Is it the salary issue? I haven't really looked into the salary issue.
You have to remember too, he had those couple of sideline incidents with the coaching staff and with Pete Carroll, and there were a couple of feuds there that you saw actually in public on the sidelines while games are going on. There's speculation of other things going on behind the scenes. So once those things begin to happen, then sometimes it may not matter how it's going to hurt you from a football standpoint. You just have to move on. But at the same time, too, as you mentioned, this is one of your cornerstone players that's still somewhat productive. He had 4 interceptions last year.
That'll take that distraction. Trust me.
Well, absolutely. But I'll tell you what, though, if I'm the Eagles, though, I don't know if I would go for it, because I know this has been thrown around for the Philadelphia media. Because remember, too, he's also 29, so he's getting up there.
Overall pick. You want to trade a first round. If you're Philly, I wouldn't trade for a first round pick.
Because that's exactly what it's going to be at least.
But think about a secondary with Richard Sherman and Malcolm Jenkins. That's a pretty good secondary. Plus, you have some guys who get after the passer. I mean, that helps significantly.
The only thing I would say to that is, just from the Eagles standpoint, to me, this kind of reeks like the Nnamdi Asomugha situation, or maybe like Byron Maxwell, where, yes,
I think those are all so much better.
I think he's a better player than them from an individual standpoint, but at the same time, this whole Legion of Boom was the best team aspect group together. So when you take the one piece from the other, maybe it doesn't come out as well as you plan. And plus, too, again, he is 29 years old.
I mean, great players are great players, but sometimes their greatness evolves in a scheme, and that's okay. That's perfectly acceptable. Richard Sherman is not going to be a guy who is going to be off cover. No sense. And I have if they're being that transparent about it, my gut feeling is that he's not going to be a Seahawk, which is unfortunate because I really enjoy watching Richard Sherman play. I like what he does.
Yeah,
he's
me too.
Tough and he's hard-nosed. He doesn't care what you think. And you need your quarterbacks to be like that. You need your quarterbacks to be a little different. You need your defensive players to be a little different. The issue with Seattle was that their offensive line. So if you're Seattle and you feel like trading Richard Sherman nets you a high-quality offensive lineman, then maybe you think about it. Maybe.
And let's face it, too, Seattle's defense was still relatively good last year, but it's still not as good as they were. They're still missing some pieces defensively, and you have a guy in Earl Thomas that can't stay healthy. Cam Chancellor had his injury issues last year. So, that Seattle defense, while it's still good and somewhat productive, it's still not perfect by any means like it was 2-3 years ago.
Honestly, maybe they're thinking a year ahead. Maybe they're thinking that, if we can get something for him now, Earl Thomas might not be around.
I think that's clearly what they're doing now.
We got to rebuild the secondary. So, and if there's a year to do it, there's a lot of good cornerbacks in this draft. Maybe that's what they're planning on doing.
Yeah, and I think that could be a draft, either draft night trade or maybe something a day or two before. We'll see. That's really interesting to me, just because of how honest they really have been about the situation going forward here. So that's something to keep an eye on up in Seattle for sure. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Football Friday. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at FFPodcast1. And remember, the new show links are on our YouTube channel. We'll get that info out to you on the Twitter page as well. And we're looking to also create maybe a Facebook page as well. Stay tuned for that. And we're really excited of all the new things that we have coming forward here and the new changes we have to the show. But again, follow us on Twitter at FFPodcast1. Ian's on Twitter at B104_Hunter. I'm on Twitter at MCATLDN. And be sure to stay tuned for the links and also the NFL news and notes on the Twitter page and hopefully with the new Facebook page as well. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of Football Friday. For Ian Hunter, I'm Matt Catrillo. We'll talk to you next time.